Hi guys, welcome to Unit 2, Lesson 6, 90 and 270 degree rotations. Sounds big and fancy, but don't worry, we've got some rules that we can learn to help us get through. Alright, so speaking of, a 90 degree rotation clockwise has the same impact as a 270 degree rotation counterclockwise. Okay, so this is a rule right here, okay? Actually, maybe I should have written that right there. But whatever your x value is, after you do a 90 degree rotation clockwise or a 270 degree rotation counterclockwise, your x value becomes your y value, and your y value becomes the opposite of your x value. That's what that means, okay? So let's look at that. If you're like, you lost me, Miss Angel, I have no idea what you're talking about. That's okay. Let's pretend like we have a point that's like right there on the x-axis, okay? If I were to do a 90 degree rotation clockwise, that means I'm going right here. That's 90 degrees, right? Here's my right angle, right? We know the whole circle would be 360. That would get me right here. So if I have a point on my x-axis and I do a 90 degree clockwise rotation, I get down to my y value, or y-axis, I'm sorry. Okay? The same is true if we do 270 in the opposite direction. So if we do 270 going counterclockwise, well, there's 90, there's 180, there's 270. Look, we got to the exact same spot. Okay, so there's my 90 degree clockwise. This one's my 270 degree counter clockwise. I'm always amazed that that's one word. It's like so long. And sometimes I accidentally write it separately, but oh well. Okay, so, and notice, like, let's just say, let's do an example to show you what I mean. Let's just say that this is point, I don't know, 50. Okay? Well, 90 degrees clockwise, that would now be, well, 0 for my x value and -5 for my y value. So notice, if we do that same method up here, 50 for our original one, now I have 0 as my x value, right? Or it was the y value from before. And the opposite of my x value, so now that's -5. Okay, so hopefully that kind of helps with you see that example. But this right here, like if I were you, I'd screenshot this or write that down. Pause the video and write it down. Okay, that way you have it handy with you. Here's another rule. Find a new point after a 90 degree counterclockwise rotation. Okay, so now, here's our rule. We're not going to go through, I won't go through an example right now. We'll do that again in a minute. But here's our coordinate plane, right? Let's pretend like we have that same point. Well, a 90 degree counterclockwise, that goes right here, 90 degrees counterclockwise. The same is true for 270 degrees clockwise. So going from here, there's 90 going clockwise, 180 going clockwise, 270 going clockwise. We land at that exact same point. Okay? And here's the rule for that. Now, if you do 90 degrees counterclockwise, your x value becomes the opposite of your y value, and your y value becomes your x value. Okay? So, again, screenshot that because it's going to come back. It's in your lesson too, but you might as well take notes, right? So, all right, 3 examples for you, all taken from your practice and your quick check. Okay? So, with this first one, given a point on a geometric figure, we don't know what the point is, or I mean, we don't know what the figure is, I'm sorry. The point is 1, 2. What is the new point when the point is rotated clockwise about the origin 90 degrees? So let's go back to our notes. See, this is why it comes in handy. 90 degrees clockwise. That's this rule here. So we can bring that over and we can say, okay, our rule is we have our original x and y values. After the rotation, we now have y. Y is first, and then negative x comes second. Okay? Remember, that was our rule for clockwise 90 degrees. So let's just translate that with the point that we were given. We were given point 1, 2. Well, now my original y value is now going to be placed as my x value. And then my y value is now going to be my negative x, or my opposite of x. Well, x was 1, so the opposite of that is negative 1. So this right here, that's your final answer. That's it. Okay? Once you know your rule, it should follow pretty easily. Okay, let's look at number 2. Given a point on a geometric figure, x, y, so this time we're not even given the coordinates, we're just given x and y. What is the new point when the figure is rotated clockwise about the origin 270 degrees? Well, that gets us down to that second rule that we learned, right? This is the same as 270 degrees clockwise. So, in this case, let's see, our x and our y become negative y x. So this would be our final answer in this particular case, and then we could apply that same information with actual numbers, okay? But for the purpose of this problem, this is what the information that you need, okay? Now, number 3 is actually number 1 from your quick check. What is the new point when you rotate a geometric figure with point 58, 270 degrees counterclockwise around the origin? We'll come back to your notes. Where can we find 270 degrees counterclockwise? That's this one here. So again, let's write that rule. Let's write that rule. We had, and actually it was the same as the other one, so I don't need to keep flipping. The rule was we have our x and our y values, which in this case we're given 5, 8. But then the rule that we wrote down was that this, when you're doing a 270 degree counterclockwise rotation, your x value becomes your y value, and your y value becomes the opposite of x. So, that being said, my original y value, that's what I'm going to put first now. And then I need the opposite of x. Well, x was 5. The opposite of that is negative 5. Making that your final answer. And that's it. Alright, we're going to keep practicing this, but at least like kind of code-wise, like if you like to code and solve puzzles and stuff, these are the rules that you need to remember. If you need extra support, you just let me know and I am happy to help. Okay?